The growing list of schools under federal scrutiny for their handling of sexual assaults has brought increased attention not only to the ordinary occurrences of assault on these campuses, but also the unwillingness or inadequacy of colleges and universities to help survivors find justice. One of those schools, the University of Virginia, is the subject of an article in this month's Rolling Stone magazine, in which a young woman's story of surviving a horrific and brutal rape exposes the devastating individual cost of sexual assault and the consequences of a rape culture run rampant on campus. The story follows this young woman's attempt to piece her life back together following the assault and pulls back the curtain on what seems at best an incompetent response and at worst a willful ignorance on the part of UVA administrators to recognize and respond to the vulnerability and violation of their students. Joining the table is the writer of that story, Rolling Stone contributing editor Sabrina Rubin Erderly, and back with us, Chloe Angel, Raul Reyes, and Salamishah Tillet. This article was extraordinarily hard to read. It felt to me not unlike watching the 12-year-old Tamir Rice be shot on a playground. And I guess part of what I'm wondering, also and part of the survivor, is the choice to tell the details of the rape in such detail, what that does to contributing to what we have seen since the article was published.
Well, I thought that it was very important to tell the story in as graphic a way as Jackie, the main character in my article, tells it. I think that when we talk about rape and sexual assault, we've started becoming very mired in euphemism. We call it sexual misconduct. We call it sexual assault. What does that really mean? So I thought it was important to show that this is not some form of misconduct, but this is a violent crime, and it was important to shine a spotlight on just how violent it is.
Probably the hardest phrase is the discourse, the calling her a thing, hold its leg. And I grew up at the University of Virginia. There's this kind of honor code, as you write about, this kind of Thomas Jefferson's ghost haunting the place. And the idea not only of the violent crime, but also that students could see their peer, their fellow student as a thing, as an it.
Well, I think that it says something very essential about what rape is, that this is not about sex, that this is a dehumanizing act meant to rob somebody of their power and really to rob them of their humanity. It's one of the reasons why it is such a traumatizing crime and why it is so abhorrent.
Let me ask you about the university's response. I want to play here. This is the University of Virginia's president, Teresa Sullivan, in an interview last Saturday with NBC. I just want to play this for a moment.
I would say, Jackie, I am so sorry about what happened to you. You did not deserve this, and it should not have happened to you. I do not believe the information was entirely there. I think that is why we were all so surprised when we read the article. The information tends to come to us in bits and pieces, and for someone who has been traumatized, that's not surprising.
So there she is saying, we didn't have all the information. This is why we were surprised when we read the article. So many people and institutions have failed this young woman, Jackie. What do you see as the university's primary culpability here?
Well, I think that it's rather disingenuous of the university to say that they didn't have all the information in Jackie's case. Jackie has told me otherwise, that she did give them a fair amount of information. If they didn't have the graphic level of information that I revealed in the article, I can only think it's because they just didn't ask her. And I think that that does say something about the way in which administrations, particularly this administration that I discovered, tries to limit its culpability, they don't really want to deal with these kinds of situations. And so they limit their responsiveness by maybe not asking too many questions, by shunting them into these campus courts where these cases disappear.
Salamishah, you were actually at the University of Virginia recently for an event addressing the issue of sexual assault prior to this piece being published.
So I just want to bring up, Roger Godell and Teresa Sullivan, and this idea of not having enough information and therefore basically, sanctioning the behavior of these perpetrators of violence against women. So that's a common tactic, as you pointed out. And two, University of Virginia is recently adopting a zero tolerance policy, akin to the Catholic Church, right? So this is one response that the university is having, based on your article, obviously, not based on Jackie's coming forward before and telling them what happened, because they chose to cover that up. But I want to talk about the institutionalizing of violence against women. And so we have it in the NFL, we have it in the U.S. military, we have it in the Catholic Church, and now we're seeing that higher education, universities that we send our children to get information, to grow up, to become professional people and to become better citizens, have for the last 40 years, and I would argue much longer, been covering up these violent acts against women as part of their daily regimen, as part of the educating of our future citizens. And ironically, by invoking Thomas Jefferson's code, and I write about Thomas Jefferson as a quite problematic figure of race and gender and violent acts as a slaveholder. But I just want to say that at this point, to invoke the zero tolerance policy is good, but that it actually has to be on a systematic level, that we have to change the entire university culture, that all of us have to be implicated in the change, and that it can't just be about prosecuting certain people here and there, but it has to be a shift of how these colleges are protecting basically a white male citizenry to perpetrate these acts of violence all the time.
I'm going to get Raul and Chloe in because I want to talk a little bit about the legal aspect as well as talk about how the students themselves have been responding.